Welcome to the 25th Specialty Coffee Association Trade Show. This is my 15th trade show. I know that's hard to believe. My name is Helen Russell. I'm co-founder and CEO of Equator Coffees and Tea. We're located in San Rafael, California, right over the Golden Gate Bridge. And I have the great privilege today to give the first TED Talk for Barista Nation. This is all being recorded. And the fine people of Unique have set up this Barista Nation and this booth for us to have great coffee. So I know looking at me, it's probably hard to believe that I was a barista 20 years ago. Do I look like a barista? But believe it or not, I was a barista. Underneath this jacket is many, many tattoos that I'll show everybody later to confirm that I actually was a barista and got up at 4:30 in the morning and made great coffee. So let me tell you a little bit about our journey, but I want to talk a little bit about what being in the specialty coffee industry is about and being an inspirational company and leader. You know, in business, it's really not about what we do, it's why we do it, right? We all make coffee one way or another. We all love coffee. We're all passionate about coffee. But why do we do it? That's the answer. What we do is make coffee. How we do it is we differentiate ourselves in different ways from a sales standpoint and value propositions. But it really is the why. People will come towards you based on why you do something. It's the why in terms of what we do, not what we do. Why do we do it? And the why for Equator has changed over the last, we've been in business for 18 years. So why we are now in the industry is about giving back to the industry. It's about layering the company with younger people. And it's about this journey of going from being a barista, owning retail, doing wholesale, and now we're farming. We've owned our own farm down in Panama called Finca Sofia, which is 15 hectares. We co-own this farm with Willem Boot from Boot Coffee. And about 8 years ago, Brooke and I were being interviewed by the San Francisco Business Times, and they said, you know, what's next for you? And I said, you know, we're thinking about investing in a farm. And then when the article came out, it said that Brooke and Helen had purchased a farm. So the next thing you know, we had owned a farm that we didn't own. So we said, you know what, maybe we should go to Panama and purchase a farm, and that's what we did. So that was 7 years ago, and it was an unplanted farm. We're planting geisha. It's one of the highest farms in Central America. It's 7,100 meters. We had no trees in the ground when we purchased the farm. We now have 25,000 geisha trees in the ground. We'll have our first harvest, first quarter 2014. And I have my entire presentation on my iPhone here. So as you can see, we're sort of a new generation of farmers. And there's a gentleman in the crowd here, Mr. Greg Still, that I've met and known and worked with, that is now, as he calls himself, a dirt farmer who owns a farm actually in Maui. So we've been fortunate enough to, you know, the people of Panama have been extremely generous with us. And we traveled down there and worked with Ricardo Coiner, Maria Ruiz, and all really the thought leaders and the third generation farmers that are down there in Panama, and that really helped us navigate this thing. And going from, you know, being a barista, being a wholesaler, and going into farming, I mean, I don't know anything about farming, right? I have plants that are at home right now that are wilting in the corner that I forgot to water when I left. That's absolutely true. But it's all about the people. And one of the things that we learned in farming that I think was the most, the most surprising thing is when you purchase a piece of land, you actually inherit the people that are on the land. So this family was living there on our land when we purchased the land, and they belonged to us in terms of we were responsible for them. So that was the biggest surprise for us as a coffee farmer. So what we decided as a group, Willem and I and Brooke, was to build some housing for these people. And they lived in a shack when we first showed up. When we came up the hill, these 3 children looked out of this shack that looked uninhabitable. And through a little bit more of an inquisition, we noticed that the young girl that was in the background had a deformed leg. And her name was Angelica. And you can read about this on our blog. But what we did was we learned that she had an infection as a baby, and their family didn't know what to do about it, so she couldn't go to school. She was in the corner. So what we did was we got with Shriners in Tampa. We got her down to Tampa. We had her leg amputated. She's an amputee. We brought her back to the farm. We purchased a horse for her named Barista so she could go to school. Now she rides the horse every morning down to the bottom of the hill and then goes out to school. And that's something that we're extremely proud of, but we had no idea when we were sitting there saying we wanted to purchase a farm that the next thing you know, we would have this young girl under our stewardship that we would have to work with and to help and to get into private school. So that's one of the things that we've done. You really inherit the people that are on the land, and it's an important thing. And of course, doing business in Panama is not an easy thing, right? The paperwork is this high because we're foreigners, right? And we're investing in Panama. So probably the first 6 trips that we actually took, I'm actually responsible for all the paperwork on the farm. So I work with the accountant and I work with the lawyer, and Willem and Brooke get to really talk about what kind of shade trees we're going to put in the ground, what kind of geisha trees we're going to plant, what zones we're going to work on, what type of fertilization we're going to use, the mission statements for the farmers, and all those things. So I've got kind of the least desirable position in terms of getting this thing done. So we own 2 corporations down in Panama. Russell McDonald Panama is a corporation, then we've got Finca Sofia, and then Willem has a corporation. So it took us 2 years to get the paperwork done to actually purchase this land that we currently have, which is absolutely beautiful. It's 19 hectares, 4 hectares is National Forest Reserve, and 15 is plantable. So we're in our 7th year, as I had mentioned, and we will be looking at our first harvest in the first quarter. We're hoping. We have our fingers crossed. And this is an experimental thing. So we've kind of come full circuit in terms of being a vertical group, being a barista, owning retail, owning wholesale, and now going all the way back to the farm, which has really helped us in terms of our own understanding of all the sourcing that we've been doing and the farming relationships and partners that we have and the microcredit loans that we do, really understanding what it's like to be a farmer and being very empathetic that it's not easy to farm. This is not an easy thing. There's a lot of weather issues, there's employee issues. We built this beautiful house, the sustainable house that we put on the farm because we were so far up. And I just did a talk earlier about being a B corporation, and it's really about benefiting the entire supply chain. It's benefiting the people that are on our land. It's benefiting our workers that we have here in the States, our workers on our property, the community, the consumer. It's really about the entire supply chain, and that's what we've done. So we're very proud of the fact that we've been able to make an impact on our farm. And we have a scholarship in place for the children that live on the farm in terms of going to school, so they're incentivized to get good grades so we can keep them in school. If you live in our worker housing, it's got 5 families currently, 22 people can stay there and can live. We also brought in some O'Neill stoves from Guatemala, because one of the things that goes on, and anyone who's traveled to Origin has really seen, unfortunately, children, they're living on the floor, their noses are runny because they do a lot of the cooking inside the house, and there's no way for the emissions to go. So we imported these stoves that uses less amount of wood, and it's very clean cooking, because that's one of the big things that the Clinton Initiative did. There's so many people that die from smoke inhalation around the world, especially in third world countries and these coffee producing farmers. So what we're trying to do is systematically and very slowly build a sustainable farm, a model farm that we can bring our customers to. In terms of seeing sustainable housing, seeing children that are healthy and thriving and doing well in school. But we're very fortunate. Panama is a beautiful place to be, right? It's not as dire as some of the other countries that I've visited, like Guatemala. But what we're facing right now in farming, which is quite scary with climate change, is this entire thing called roya, which is leaf rust that we're experiencing. We only have a little bit of leaf rust right now because we're at such a high elevation. So it takes a lot of people to do this. We have a farm manager, Kelly Hartman, which is 3rd generation. I don't know if anybody knows Finca Hartman. It's a wonderful coffee farm. They have great estate. Finca Hartman Estate. It's a family 3rd generation farm. That's our farm manager, so he has a lot of expertise. Willem Boot, who owns Boot Consulting, who's a international coffee person, also owns a couple of farms in Panama, who's our partner. So we're doing a lot of, we're bringing in a lot of people, starting a lot of initiatives down there, and we hope to, at some point, grow the greatest coffee in the world, because we're planting the geisha, so we will be in the specialty cupping contest down in Panama, hopefully next year. So that's what we're working on. Because you're all kind of away from me here, I would love to have some interaction and some questions, because I think it's unusual for coffee roasters to own their own farms. I think that's an unusual thing. Mark Still, who owns Portland Roasting Company, owns his own farm, so there's not many in the country that actually do. So I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding that. So come on forward and get on TV here with me. This will be on the nightly news with NBC in Boston any second now.
How has the government sector been as far as working with the government coming from the U.S.? What's been your biggest struggle, and what was the big aha moment dealing with the government?
Well, Greg is asking a question about the government. I mean, anytime you do business out of the country, you know, it's laborious. One of the things when you go to Panama, and I was told this because I'm a type A and a control freak, that you just need to lower your heart rate and know that this is going to be a very long process. You wait an hour for the attorney. You wait 2 hours for the accountant. You wait 3 days for the bank to come in and have a meeting with you. The government has been extremely supportive, and one of the reasons why they've been mainly supportive is the fact that we're not buying this land for developing condos or homes, that we're actually planting trees and we're keeping people on the land. So they've been extremely supportive, to be honest. Panama is a very good place to do business internationally. So I've been very pleased that we chose that country to do the business in. I think the most laborious part of the whole thing was working with Banco Nacional, which it took us 1.5 years to get a recent loan that we had with them. And that was the most kind of paper, because they were very suspicious of, you know, us coming down there and wanting to get this loan to build housing and to build roads. So I think that was the most difficult part of this process so far, is working with the bank. And now the bank is on our side, and they get it, because when we did the ribbon cutting ceremony and we invited the bankers up, all 4 bankers come up, when we had invited all our neighbors, they still did not believe that we weren't going to move into this housing that we just built. They thought, oh my God, they've tricked us. They really are going to live here because it was so nice, which wasn't true. This is definitely for the workers. So that would be the only thing I would say was the bank. But it's very easy to do business in Panama. I mean, it's a banking community, and they really want foreign investment. So that's been kind of easy. Yep. Right. Right.
Just bring it to the forefront and encourage the great thing that you've done for the women of Panama, because it's really also Central America. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'll tell you a funny story about being a women-owned business and going to Panama. When we did the plans to do the worker housing, we sat down with all the workers that were living there. So there were about 8 guys, myself, the builder, who happens to be a woman from Berkeley, and Brooke and myself. So we sat down, and all the women that were on the farm were off to the right. And they were sitting over there with their children kind of looking at us, and we were showing the men the design for the new worker housing and the kitchens and the bedrooms and this and that. So Susan, who was the builder from Berkeley who spoke Spanish, said, you know what, let's invite the women over. And she said this in Spanish. And the men were like, what do you mean? They got all concerned about it. You could tell they tightened up. So the women came over, they sat around, they started giggling, because no one had ever asked them their opinion before. Now, me being a successful entrepreneur in the US, that's such a foreign concept for me. So Susan laid it out, and she said to the women, what size kitchen would you like, and how would you like the kitchen to look? Well, obviously the women wanted a larger kitchen because they stay back in the kitchen while the men go out to the fields and they cook and take care of the children. The men wanted large units with locks on them and a smaller kitchen. So guess what they got? They got the larger kitchen, right? Because we're a women-owned business. So that was kind of funny, and that was kind of fun to see. And we visited a lot of farms in Panama prior to actually drawing up this unit to see what was going to be the best. Because a lot of times foreigners come down and we'll build them something that we'd like, walk-in closets. That's what I like. And then they ended up, they just putting storage in there. So I'm kidding about that. But we did compostable toilets and things like that. And we have a set of rules, and they're actually on the wall of how they take care of things. So they have to be responsible regarding everything around the house. There's cleaning days. They have to clean out the septic tanks. They have to really take pride in the ownership of this particular building that we've built for them. It's a good question. Any other questions for me? Yeah. Yeah, we had a first harvest last year when I was down there. We actually had a handful of beans that I actually put in my sock and took them back to Panama City and milled in the sink at the hotel. And then I smuggled them back in. And then we dried them on our inbox. And then we roasted them in the sample roaster, and then we cupped them. So it was the smallest harvest known to man, but it was an early indication of the quality of the coffee that we're going to be having there. So, yeah, it was a great thing. Good question, yeah. Any other questions? Maureen, what else would you like to know about the farm? Well, and I think the most rewarding thing for Equator for us is really making a difference in the life of this young girl, really changing her life. If we had not purchased this particular piece of land, she would be in the corner for the rest of her life. She would have just stayed in the corner. She couldn't play with other children. She would have grew into an older woman that never did anything. And it's just being able to, private school for her is $150 a month. And we had to do that to get her caught up because she hadn't been to school since she was 10 years old. So that's going to be the most rewarding experience. And business is about impact, right? Wanting to have an impact. And when you own your own piece of land and a farm, everything you do has an impact. Whether you put a couple of bags of gravel to make the roads better, you purchase this horse from the neighbor for this young girl to take down to the farm and tie up. I couldn't get over it when we were approaching the farm, and I actually saw the horse tied up there, waiting for Angelica to come back, to ride back up to the farm. And we had taken down a journalist and an economist, and they're like, this is the most amazing thing. And sometimes you get so caught up in business and the day-to-day of running your own business, you don't see some of the impacts that you've made. And people will say to you, wow, that's amazing that you've done that. And it really has been amazing. It's been extremely rewarding to run a successful business and have the options that we've had it for the last 18 years and to make a difference in not only the lives of the people that are on our farms, but how we buy coffee and microcredit loans and visiting people at origin. It's just this is what I love about the specialty coffee industry. It doesn't take a lot to make an impact in somebody's life, and we've always been on the forefront of sustainability as a group, and it's one of the most wonderful places to be. When we started this company, Brooke and I sat down in Pioneer Square out in front of Starbucks, and she said, we should start a coffee company. And I said, well, I don't know anything about coffee. She says, well, I love coffee. I said, well, I'd like to own my own business. And we wrote it all down on a napkin and went back to the Bay Area knowing nothing and wrote this business plan and opened up these 2 coffee bars. So it's just, this industry has given us so much. And I feel very grateful for all the different avenues. And again, as I said at the beginning of the talk, it's not what you do, it's why you do it. People buy from you based on why you do something, and we do something because we can make an impact. We have young people now working for us. We're layering the company of young people and giving them an opportunity. One of our employees is in the barista competition this afternoon. Ted here, who works with us as green coffee buyer, he just got back from one of our farms in Ecuador and delivered our 3rd microcredit loan to those folks. So it's making a difference in a small way, but having a very large ripple effect and being a sort of a beacon of how things can be in business, because business is changing, right? It's going from shareholder values to stakeholder value, right? It's all about triple bottom line now. It's all about the farmers, it's all about community, it's all about our workforce, it's all about the consumer, and it's about sustainability. It's no longer, business is very, very competitive. And it's not about being the best, that you can be. It's being the best for the world that you can be now. That's where we're going. The governments and the NGOs and the nonprofits can't do it anymore. They're going to look to us as business leaders to make this leap from shareholder value, just focused on the bottom line, to stakeholder value, where there's a value chain and everybody benefits. And I think that's what's great about the specialty coffee industry. That's what we've been on the forefront. That's what we're known for. We are the thought leaders. We are the people that carry this ball forward, and we will continue to do this. So anybody who's in this industry, it affects me on a daily basis. Yeah, there's accounts receivable, and there's espresso machines that break down in New York, and there's horses that get lame, and there's vets that have to come, and you have to spay the animals that are on the farm so I don't have 8 cats when I go back. But these are all the things that really make an impact and make a difference, and we've been fortunate enough that we've been able to do that.